Could I call into this person, our first agenda item person, get him on the phone first?
Oh, sure.
Or go ahead and get
Well,
started,
we can
and I'll
get
get started with
started.
that. Yep.
So let's call the meeting of the Community and Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund Committee to order with, first with roll call, Jim Blumrick.
Here.
Brian Johnson.
Here.
Matt Schuler, Chris Van Andel.
Chad.
Or Chad, Chris, sorry.
Here.
And I'm here.
Both of us.
Both of us. Both of you here. That's good. Motion to approve minutes of 8/29/18 meeting.
So move.
We have a first, and do we hear a second?
Do we have to approve the agenda first, I think?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do that. I'm just following my notes, but that's all right. We can do that. Motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion to approve the minutes of 8/29/18
So
meeting.
move.
First, second?
First.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And item number 2. And Wendy, you were going to try to.
Yeah, trying to log him in. I'm having a little trouble getting him, a hold of him. Kira, do you have the, is it a 543 number? 5320? That's the number you gave me yesterday.
217. 217,
All right,
4965.
why don't you, do you want to bring that number over for me?
Yep.
Nine, six, one. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the
It's in the
digital one.
Automated voice message. Do you want to try and see if you can get a hold of him?
Sure.
So, we're having a problem. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Good morning, City of Green Bay, this is Wendy Townsend. Okay, good. Your timing is perfect. We are ready to take your agenda item, and I'm going to put you on speaker, okay? All right, can everyone, Andy, we're going to just do a, Andrew, we're going to do a voice check. Can you say hello?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
So I have Mike Borley, Jim Blumrick, Chad Van Handel, and Brian Johnson are our loan committee that you're speaking with before this morning. And I'll get started real fast. Andrew Fabre is owner of the Badger State Brewery. Badger State Brewery is requesting a loan in the amount of $250,000 for a business expansion project at 990 Tony Canadeo Run in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Badger State Brewery plans to expand their operations from a 15-barrel facility to a, Andrew, what is the correct number now?
The total barrel capacity will be 52, and that's comprised of a new 30-barrel brewing system as well as a 7-barrel system that can be used for piloting R&D batches, new recipe testing,
Okay.
things like that.
Okay.
So,
they've updated the number since our original application. So it's going to be from a 15-barrel facility to a 52-barrel production facility to meet the growing demands and expand into the Milwaukee and Madison markets. The total amount of the project is estimated at just under $2 million. It's at 1.975, and have been approved for an SBA 504 loan and are seeking funding for equipment, the expansion, and working capital. Should we stop at that point? I know that we sent in the financial information along with the request. In their loan application, the original loan application that came in, the sources and uses, we have the equipment, so revised as of our November 2nd meeting, that equipment will be the expenses of $140,000, so the breakout will be in $35,000 for working capital and $75,000 in build-out expenses for this particular project.
correct.
And we also have, Andrew on the phone, and then we have Garrett from Bank of Luxembourg. This is Garrett Jesko. Did I say your name right?
Yep,
Okay.
correct.
And one of the special requests for this particular project is, so you know the breakout of where the funding would go to and how the uses would be used. But one thing that's a little different than our templated loan portfolio is that they have asked us to match the terms of the SBA so that our loans are the same, and this is a requirement of the SBA. So they are going out on a 20-year term, and they're wondering if the loan committee would consider that in order for their SBA financing. And Garrett can speak to the request for that. So it's a little bit different term than we've typically had for some of the other pieces, but it has to be equivalent, the two fundings pieces have to be the same, because if one ends before the other, we're not intertangled or interrelated. So if we would have a 3-year term on something versus having the 20, both loans would be equivalent and backed by each other. All right, so should we,
Well,
if you want to proceed.
at this
Mike.
time, we should probably open the floor for comment. Anyone has questions for Andy as well as for Garrett? So I would entertain a motion to.
So, open the floor
suspend
for interested
rules.
parties.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Maybe we'll start out with you, Garrett.
Sure.
Just kind of explain the scope of the project.
Do you want to step up to the podium, and then that way
That's all right.
Andy can hear as well?
Yep. Yeah,
Andrew, I'm sorry.
the scope of the project is, again, it's really the next expansion of their brewery. Most of the funds are being used for equipment, being the tanks and all the brewing equipment that goes along with that. And that's where we have the SBA 504 loan attached to it. The equipment itself does, the manufacturers told us it has 20-plus years useful life, as long as it's maintained. So that's where that's the reason for the ask on the 20 years. SBA was okay with that. And then from the request here is any funds using that as additional collateral are just required to match that term or amortization anyway. As far as the project goes, like I said, the equipment was big, and this will be the next step. Again, it'll allow, and Andrew can talk maybe a little more to it later, it'll allow him to expand his market to basically have all of Wisconsin. They've been doing really well to get market share everywhere they've gone so far, and it's been a nice growing business. So now it's a matter of equipment will be one thing, and then it's going to be some rapid growth pretty quickly. So that's where we have the working capital requirements, and we've provided a $225,000 working capital line for that growth as it comes through, as it continues to grow in the next few years. And then the last piece would be the build out in the space there. Obviously, we're here because they're going to be adding some employees. So with that, they need some additional office space to be built out in their current space. So it shouldn't really expand the footprint of the building too much. It's just inside, just to give offices for that staff as they bring it on for this expansion. So
Inside and up
inside and up, yep.
is the expansion.
Andrew, Mike Borley here. With that, are you going to take away some of your rental space as far as parties or gathering, or is that going to stay the same? Or is some of your expansion going into your party space, if you will?
Andrew, is the expansion going to be limiting any of your other entertainment spaces?
Will the expansion limit or eliminate any of the other spaces? No. It'll occur in existing space, and the build out that's referred to is specifically for office space, which is already within the existing building. It's an unused room right now that we have available to us that would allow us to house employees in a normal working environment for that type of administrative and front office work. But no spaces that are in existence for anything else will be eliminated.
Any questions, guys? Jim?
I'm a beer fan. What's the market look like in Milwaukee and Madison?
Jim is a beer fan. What's the market look like in Milwaukee and Madison?
Well, those are obviously the two biggest metro markets in the entire state. So the market and the population is obviously greater than what we currently have access to in Green Bay and in the Fox Valley. Quite frankly, if you open up a tap room and a brewing facility in one of those areas, yeah, you'll end up paying, more in rent and, some other stuff, but you have the opportunity to make your money back a lot faster as well as get your brand exposed, to a lot more people in a much shorter amount of time. Particularly, with the Milwaukee market, that's the one we're focused on first. There's a tremendous amount of cross traffic via the I-43 corridor, which not only crosses through Green Bay, but then also, makes its way up into Door County eventually. We do a lot of seasonal business up there. I should say a ton, actually. So we believe that by expanding into these markets, even, in a limited, setting to start, we'll drive that exposure up and continue to grow our brand overall. So we're excited about the opportunity. We know that the population for beer drinkers specifically looking for the types of products that we're producing is there.
To that note, Andy, Mike Borley here again. Have you partnered with any other distributors? Or do you have that in the pipeline as far as how you're going to deliver that product to those markets?
I think I caught a bit of that. Wendy, could you just repeat it to make sure?
Mike is wondering if you are partnering with any other distributing organizations with your expansion.
At this time, we have two different distributors that basically have expressed interest in getting us on board tomorrow in both markets. We continue to have conversations with them every so often to keep them in the loop on our expansion plans and growth. Our hometown distributor, K Distributing, is part of a beverage distribution network with other distributors in the state that sell and distribute similar products. And local beer is one of the top trending and still growing categories within the beer segment. So yeah, we do have people that we've spoken to basically loaded in the hopper. We're just waiting to pull the trigger. We did a little bit of kind of kicking the tires and doing some testing with draft-only products, but the goal was to not send products until we knew we could sustain the pipeline, and that includes both on and off premise, so both in bars and in grocery stores, liquor stores, etc.
Okay.
So from our, we have the ability to go to 20 years, that's within our authority?
That's a question.
Yep, those guidelines are established, those were set up by the loan committee. That is not a HUD guideline as far as the terms, as far as the interest rate we charge is set up by the loan committee, the duration of the loan, and those are all loan committee judgments that you can, that is not a HUD guideline. HUD gives us the money and has guidelines that it has to be tied to job creation or business creation or expansion, but that is not, those are internal decisions that we can make, that the loan committee has the authority to do.
And Garrett, that's a requirement that on that particular application, SBA package, that
Yes.
they want that amortization to equal.
To match. Now, and I guess I don't know if it's really in part to the 140 piece was going for equipment, because that's the SBA 504. The remaining stuff can be on its normal term depends how this slices and dices up, but it's the 140 that's tied to the equipment directly is really the key thing that has to be at the 20 years.
Because the SBA is really, they're lending for equipment.
Correct.
purposes only.
Correct. Yeah, it splits up, and we essentially have 3 different loans that does 3 different purposes for this project.
Just maybe a follow-up question for Andrew on that. I mean, if we do split that up, where we do the 140 on a 20-year term and do the balance on another term that's more accustomed to what this committee does, is that going to impact their cash flow?
So Andrew, the question from Brian Johnson is if the loan committee, I don't know if you heard it, if the loan committee does do the construction loan at one term, the equipment at another term, so the equipment at 20 years. Right now, our working capital loans are at a 5% interest rate for a 3-year term. And
Sure.
construction loans can be at another, whatever is determined by the committee. And construction often, because we know it's tied to the real estate, could probably even be out, and we just tie those funds to the real estate investment. So depending, so that's pretty well secured. But is that going to, right now, I would imagine with this large expansion that cash flow is important to you, and Brian is worried about us affecting your cash flow balance with that. How does that affect you?
At this point, we are essentially looking to round up and finish out the project in its entirety. We're not looking for the bulk of funds from the city or from the county. So in regards to cash flow, whatever's been affected has already been affected through the SBA loan that we've established with the Bank of Luxembourg. Now that being said, we do have an interest-only term set up with the bank to get us through to the next year. We anticipate that all this equipment will be up and running by January or February 2019, which then allows us kind of a nice cushion of a couple months to get that equipment running soundly with no issues prior to the summer selling season, which is our busiest time of year. And that would also coincide with launch and introduction into these new markets. We are also hoping to invest in people. That's another big part of this project is the jobs, full-time employees that we're looking to bring on and create. So, the reality is that cash flow is going to be tight either way. Whether this goes through or not, cash flow is extremely important, and it's extremely tight for any growing business. I talk to a lot of other, business owners who are going through the same stuff, and I guess the bottom line is that every little bit helps. So this is really, again, kind of a rounding out of the total project, and really isn't going to hurt us more than it's going to help us, is what I'm saying.
Does that answer your question, Alderman Johnson?
And we're not being asked to do interest only to start it all, or?
I was just gonna suggest that. I mean, we could, I'm comfortable, obviously, meeting the 140 requirement from SBA, but then take the other 110 and do a 6-month interest only on our standard lending package.
Those are all things that can be set up by the committee. So those are all individual based decisions on the committee.
What about the term of interest only for the first 6 months, you said?
Well, if we, what was our terms again, Wendy? The equipment was 7-year amortization, was it?
The equipment is typically on a 10-year amortization, depends on the equipment. But now brewing equipment, as we're finding out, is holding its shelf life. But a lot of times with equipment, typically, we've put a 10-year, because a lot of times paper-making equipment or forklift equipment and things like that have had a 10-year amortization.
And our working capital was 5.
Our working capital was a 3-year.
3.
And just make a recommendation maybe before we start debating the terms of the loan, finish up with questions and close the floor.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Does anyone have any more questions for Andrew?
Here, Andrew?
Hearing none.
Motion to close the floor?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Andrew, the floor is closed, just you'll be on listening now, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Johnson, is your request to go to closed session?
No.
No? Okay.
Well, it's just, normal
No,
protocol.
that's fine.
Yeah. So the question I do have for you though, Wendy, is if you could maybe just do a high-level overview for me and maybe others that maybe aren't as familiar, I don't know if you guys, how familiar you are with it too, but how does this impact our ability, if we do a 20-year term on this, particularly the portion that doesn't necessarily have to be 20 years, how does that impact our ability to make future loans to other applicants that might come forward?
That is a consideration, because as we know, cash flow, just like in a business, just like a loan portfolio, the more funds that we have in, I'm just gonna mute it down a little bit. The more revenue that we receive, the more loans that we're able to grant. So right now, we get in about $20,000 per month. So it's 17 plus,
256.
what?
17
So 17,000 and some change come in every month on the intake of our loans that are out there. And so in 2 or 3 months, then I have enough for another loan or so, and so we can build that until I can ask for additional funds. So it does affect our loan granting ability.
Do you anticipate, I guess, another surge of investment from the government, from the federal government? I mean, because is this funded predominantly through block grant?
Through block grant funds. So it's our Community Development Block Grant Fund. We just received another $100,000 in those funds this month or within the last few months.
The last budget year.
Yeah, the last budget year.
Okay. But
And
that's intended to
That's
take
what's
us-
happening right now.
But
That's
is that intended to take us through all of next year
all the
now?
way up through next year.
So we're basically, potentially with these 2 loan applications this year, we're draining out all of next year's fund.
Yep.
Okay.
This is getting all of our funds out in circulation,
But for the monthly increment that comes in.
except for the monthly increment that
Right.
comes in.
Well, and I'm fine with that, but I'm also in favor of recirculation to
Absolutely.
ensure that we have, funding that can continue to support additional applications.
I think that's a good sensitivity as well. Yes, I'm
Because to your point, Brian, I mean, I'm looking at available funds as of September 30th, and, well, one, we have no funds, not enough to grant these loans as a whole.
Actually, there's some funds, there's money that came in from our $100,000 that came in this fall. It's not in here. It's in HUD funds, but it's not into our account because I have to have the approval before I can request those funds to be put into our account.
So it's 289?
So it's allocated, but it's not into the bank account yet. Is that the best way to say it?
Yes.
Okay. I have Stephanie Slesser here, our senior accountant, who helps me with these funds and keep them all in order.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I just think based on the dialogue, I think I'd be more inclined to say, let's do the 140 on the 20-year term to meet that SBA guideline, because that's pretty critical.
Right.
And I just assume rather see the balance on the term that's appropriate per our standard guidelines to meet the balance, but maybe even do interest only as a year to kind of just extend that olive branch to say,
Well, because the 110 is basically working capital and build out, so it's really not, the 140 is gonna be tied to that asset as equipment. We're gonna take a second of that, and then we'll take a second, obviously. I mean, the exposure is what it is, but would you go, if we're doing a working capital of 3 years versus a equipment or building of 10, you just put that all at 10 then? Or are we gonna do a 5-year and interest only? Or, how do you split that up based on, not that it's, I guess, looking at setting precedent as what we've done in the past versus working capital, and then how do we apply that to this loan?
I mean, to me, it sounds like it wouldn't necessarily impact them from a cash flow perspective. You're talking about a $2 million project. I mean, this piece is $100,000.
Right.
And it's the difference of a 20-year versus 10 or 5, whatever we may choose to do. But so I can see where the cash flow on that wouldn't necessarily impact them dramatically. But I asked the reverse question of how does it impact the fund and our ability to loan to new applicants. I have no problems with the risk side of this. These guys are great operators. I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, so that piece doesn't concern me. And so I guess that's why I turn my attention to our ability to continue to make new loans.
Chad?
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think on the risk side, I mean, it seems like a logical next step for it. I'm open to, whatever makes sense on, again, comply with the SBA on the equipment piece, and then whatever, we think is appropriate on the other piece. I don't know. I think the interest only is good. I don't know that we need to go outside of that terms on the other piece that we're providing.
I kind of like the suggestion of 5 years on the working capital piece. Interest only is fine with me, 6 months a year. Gets them over the hump a little bit on the startup. So I think sticking with the 20 years on the SBA loan portion makes sense as well. So it sounds like we're in agreement, just the term for the working capital piece.
Well, I would entertain a motion.
So I'm going to try to piece this together. I would move that we approve this loan with the $140,000, 20 years. What's the rate on that, 20 years?
4%.
At 4%. And the $110,000 on 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
1 year interest free.
And that would be a 5%.
Do you want the construction at 5 years as well?
Yeah. I think that's what we talked about, right?
They're putting both the build out and the working capital to the 110.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think that giving the interest-free option for a year, to me, kind of helps.
Interest only or interest free?
Interest only.
I'm sorry, interest only.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Good
Thank you
point.
for that catch.
Good to have the accountant in the room.
What's the standard rate on that?
That is, so on a construction loan, it's 4%. And then on the working capital, it had been previously organized by the loan committee to have it at 5%.
I would propose 4%.
Okay, so
Again,
4 all
just
the way
to,
through.
For the 110.
just because we are condensing the repayment period.
So
I'd second.
4% all the way through.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and the motion reads that we would approve the loan, and the terms would be the $140,000 for equipment at a 20-year amortization at 40% to
4%.
4% to match the SBA requirement. The remaining $110,000 at a 5-year amortization at 4% with the first year interest-only payment. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion approved.
All right, Andrew, we'll follow up with all this information a little later, but your request has been approved. And I'm going to move on to the second item on our agenda then, all right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye.
No samples?
All right.
All right, item number 3, review of loan application for the DS2 Hospital and Management
It's
LLC.
hospitality. I think I might have had a
Typo.
typo. That might have been,
It's hospitality.
it's hospitality.
Just a
Yeah,
typo.
I must not have coffee
Jim, if you
before
ask
I
for
said
samples
that.
on this item, I'm going to question you.
Good point.
So,
All right, Wendy.
let me give you a little background. DS2 Hospitality Management LLC is requesting a loan in the amount of $100,000 for property and business acquisition of the Motel 6 located at 1614 Shawano Avenue, Green Bay, Wisconsin. The request it'll be made up of $60,000 coming from our ED RLF, so our Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund, which is minority owned program, and $40,000 from the Community Development Revolving Loan Fund program. So those are our two pieces. So Sonali and Deepak, I'm going to get your last name wrong, but Agarwal, is this right? Yeah. Are both business professionals in the banking and finance industries and have decided to become entrepreneurs and purchase their own business. DS2 Hospitality and Management LLC will be their managing entity and then they plan to purchase and operate the Motel 6 located at 1614 Shawano Avenue. We've been through their questions. Their financials are included here along with their business plan and all of the other documents required by the loan committee. So if you would look at their request for $100,000 for our two different loans, we would like to hear what the committee has to say.
Motion to suspend the rules. We have a motion. We'll hear from the party.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome.
Thank
Would you like to come up and tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. First of all, thank you for entertaining our loan application. Just to give you a background, I'm in the finance industry, not the industry, I'm in the airline industry, but working as a financial professional for the last 20 years. Aviation industry, which is the airline side, I work for Air Wisconsin Airlines, headquartered in Appleton, Wisconsin, at the airport, and we are partnered with United Airlines. So my function over there is looking at the maintenance department from a finance side. So I overlook the entire maintenance division of the company. We've been in the hotel industry, hospitality industry, directly from my wife's side. Maybe she can talk more further on that.
Excuse me for my bad throat, first of all. And this setup is a little intimidating for me. I thought it was going to be more
You're fine.
casual.
It's
So-
just us.
All right, thank you so much for taking time and listening to our application and the request. I worked for the customer service background. I have the customer service background for last maybe 20 years. And when I moved here in 2011 to join my husband, the American dream was for me to start my own business. So I was working with UW Oshkosh for a few years, but always having this back in the mind that, you know, one day I want to have my own business. And hospitality was my, you know, the focus. So I was working with my friends who own a lot of hotels in the vicinity, Appleton, Neenah, and Green Bay. So I was actually going and helping them out during the evenings or the weekends just to get the gist of the business, how it works here. And I was also working with Chase, which I resigned last month because now we are in the finalization of the buying this property in Green Bay. We met Wendy last month. Was it last month? We actually was not looking for the loan when we met her. We were trying to get in touch with the city and the officials just to know and build up a good rapport and just to know how we can help the city and how we can, you know, join hands with the city and work together. But the things unfolded in a way that now we are relying on the city to help us bail out, kind of, you know, with this request of the loan as well.
So initial investment amount was $2 million. That still stands. And while we negotiated the terms and the purchase amount, we actually negotiated further down. It was around $2.5 million. So we negotiated to $2 million. That helped for the investment. Secondly, a couple of the investments are equity that we're putting in. We're putting in 20% equity in the project, which is $400,000. Secondly, we had applied for a loan. That was based on a couple contingencies. The loan was approved by Covantage Credit Union out of Antigua. $1.6 million was approved by them initially. However, when a couple of the appraisals came up, the property appraisal, we were thinking the appraisal is going to be way over $2 million, close to the vicinity of $2.5, $2.7 million. That came out a little bit short. It came out to be close to $2.1 million. So the gap between 2.6, for example, versus 2.1, that reduced the collateral percentage from Covantage's perspective. So that led to the reduction in their loan amount from $1.6 million to 1.5-ish. So that's where, you know, we thought of requesting the city. Initially, we were thinking of using the funds towards the capital investment and towards the working capital. But, you know, we pulled our stocks together and we thought, you know, maybe we can pull some funds from some other locations too. So we got also help from Community First Credit Union. We are pulling, what do you call this? The loan on our property.
Home
Your home
equity
equity
on your
right,
property.
right, on our property. So it's a home equity loan that was also funded. So that kind of gave a little cushion to us on the working capital side. But we are still kind of short of $150,000 to $200,000. We try to reduce that as much as possible, but here, if the city grants us $100,000, that's going to really help us close the gap.
I just want to clarify that the original ask was for $250, but we didn't have the funds for that, so it's not that it wasn't valid, we just didn't have those funds available. And there are $60,000 remaining in the minority economic development, minority-owned business development loan portfolio, and there will be 60 remaining roughly in our community development Black Grant Fund. So that's how this was, that's why these are two different loan, we were just trying to figure out what was the best configuration for them of what we had to offer.
So is the minority balance not in the 189?
No, it is not. It's a
Separate.
completely separate loan.
Oh, okay.
And we have I never thought about putting a package together for that. We just granted that one this last month, and so we haven't had a history to track or any information because that was Dairy Queen was the other.
Oh, sure.
Was the Tasty Treats, I'm sorry, that's Dairy Queen on Main was the other minority when we just granted that last month. So that loan is just starting to get its history going. But we'll have a committee, a report next time.
So there is 60,000 available in the minority fund
That's right.
and sufficient funds, 40,000, to make the additional,
Yes.
come up to 100,000.
But that'll make it pretty well. That'll get most of our funds out in circulation at that point.
So-
Unless Stephanie wants to speak to that, yep.
Yeah, that'll pretty much diminish everything that we have at this point, and then it'll just be, once we get repays enough to establish another loan.
So that gets all
All
of our funds in circulation.
Well, let's, Brian has a question.
Yeah, so-
Open up the floor for questions.
First off, I'm thrilled to see you guys taking an interest in this property. I think this property is due for some new ownership, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which has been, and I'm very grateful that you have conducted the outreach to various city officials, to kind of build that good rapport, because as you may already know, this property has been troublesome with police calls and other things. Could you just maybe speak to what you might do differently to help try to reduce the number of police calls that we currently receive on that property?
Yeah, first of all, I think that's the reason why corporate is trying to get rid of all those properties which are troublesome.
Does corporate own it right now?
Right,
This is,
yeah.
Okay.
yes.
These six
So-
out of Carrollton, Texas, I believe.
Exactly.
Who owns the property.
Right.
So being owner owned, and that's the reason why I resigned my Chase job, so that I can be focused on this. So every day, single days, 365 days, we are planning to be on the property. And over the weekends, we are even planning to stay on the property so that we can watch and closely look everything. And we are planning to install the security cameras. There are no security cameras right now in the property. So we already have the codes and everything, and we are on top of everything for that as well. And for now, we are thinking security camera is the first thing within the first month that we are planning to install. If that doesn't happen, the back-end plan was to hire somebody who will be watching the property in the night, and we also have a maintenance guy who stays on the property. We are planning to have him stay on the property during the night so that he can keep a watch outside as well.
Okay.
The other vital factor could be is improve the lights at the property. Quite a few areas are kind of blind spots, which are not well lit. And also just improving the quality of the light system is just gonna make the property a little bit more, maybe make it reduced from a security perspective. No more things that can be done in the dark that could be, taken care of. Definitely, security cameras are gonna help us a lot in coordinating with the police department, how we can reduce any kind of criminal activities over there. So.
Also, we are not planning to have long-term people staying there, that they sometimes create some problems, people who are living there as a home.
Mhm.
And we also want to not give the property to anybody who walks in. We want to have a decent clientele.
Okay. So the on-site management to me that you immediately came out with was the one thing I wanted to hear, so
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize they didn't have cameras either. And
Oh, they
so
don't, yeah.
I would definitely work with the police department, on selecting a system that they know will work well, I mean,
Okay.
I've worked with them on issues like that, and they've just given excellent advice
Okay.
when picking a system. So I would definitely rely on their expertise as well, and building a relationship with the community police officers in that area too,
Right.
I think would be a great benefit to you. So.
Right. Yeah, we have already reached out to the city police department, and we're trying to, engage with the city on a daily basis. I mean, not probably on a daily basis, but initially, maybe it's gonna be on a daily basis, and slowly, gradually, it's gonna reduce. And we want it to be reduced because we don't want to be talking to the police department on a daily basis, right? So certainly, on-site management is the most important thing that we need to have.
Great.
One of the things I wanted to add too is that they are reconfiguring where the registration is so that there's a better visibility, where there's glass, and we've talked about facade-related changes to that greeting area where there's a person in there, people can see from the street that there's a person there. I think that'll make a big difference, just even knowing that there's the visibility, that it's activated, and just it's different when you want to drive by and you see glass windows with someone standing inside.
Well, and I didn't realize this property was corporate owned, so I tell you, it's been a problem
Flipping.
property, but it doesn't have to be.
Exactly.
Yes.
And,
Right.
and I think having you guys present and I think that'll just make a world of difference, so.
Right now, the facade is also not welcoming, so our very near future, we are planning to, change that also a little bit, depending on, how much revenue we are able to generate. It's, during the snow season, if there is a Packer game and the families come to check in, there is a line, a long line queue, and they don't have a place to sit. So we want to make it more welcoming
Sure.
when they come, so that they can come inside. There is no sitting arrangement on the reception area, so we are planning to remove a couple walls and have that, more welcoming, more lit up sitting area as well for them.
Great.
So question for you, I had read through the financials earlier on, and occupancy is what it's about in the hotel industry, I think. And you show an escalating occupancy, albeit not a huge increase, but
Right.
speak to that, if you will, where you
Sure.
get that sense.
Number one, being a corporate-owned property, a lot of things are not viewed as an owner would view it. There's not a lot of emphasis on customer service. There's not a lot of emphasis on long-term or maybe a renewal or
business.
repeat business.
Return.
So currently, the percentage of occupancy is roughly around 53 to 54%. And we are trying to, based on the customer service, based on the advertisements, based on all the other factors that are involved as a family-owned business now, what we have forecasted is only a mere 3% increase on an annual basis. So which is not a huge, that's maybe a room to two rooms on an annual basis that we're increasing. So that's a very conservative number. So that's gonna go up to 55 to 57% in the next few years overall when you look at it. But that's a very conservative number. So from a revenue perspective, it's gonna be maybe, we are hoping that it's gonna be double than 3% that we have forecasted. So
Yeah, because we went to the property as customers few time, and the response was like very laid back. Nobody ever returned our calls. But if I'm going to be there on the property, so we are going to work. It's going to be our baby. So
Mhm.
that's how we are going to take care of the property. So I think a lot of things are going to change.
And do you still pay a franchise fee then to
Yes.
Motel Associated? Okay. How much is that?
So initially, first of all, there's an initial cost to own a franchise. That's $25,000.
Okay.
And then there's an ongoing, it's a percentage. There's no fixed amount, but it's a percentage based on the total revenue.
Which is about 12%.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways of
IT
getting
is
that.
this much, so they don't have a fixed cost that we are paying
Yeah.
to them. The IT gets this much, and the support gets this much.
So overall, when you look at it, it does go up to 11 to 12%, depending on how you manage the property.
Do they enter you into a long-term agreement on that?
Yes, it's in fact, that was one of the negotiating points that we entertained with them. Usually, it's a 20-year fixed, no cancellation policy, You can cancel and pay a fine for whatever amount it is, but we have come up with three or two options. One is that first 5 years that we can have an option to cancel with a certain amount fee, but after 10 years we can cancel it without a fee, and we can even extend the term after that and keep it until 20 years. So we have very favorable terms on that.
Good.
First off, again, congratulations. This is the American dream, is to be able to do what you're trying to do. But I also share Alderman Johnson's concerns in my personal checking on the relationship that property has had with the police department. The issue, though, besides that is on the revenue side, because at the end of the day, you need to generate enough money to pay for all of your expenses.
Sure.
And it sounds like you're really digging deep to try to finance the initial purchase of this property at $2 million. Where is the working capital coming from, as well as the improvements that have to occur to this property?
Mm-hmm.
And when I toured the property yesterday, the city has condemned part of that property.
Right.
So I have a real tough time
Sure.
seeing how this is all going to work, because looking at it from an outside standpoint, I mean, we're looking at minimum $500,000 worth of improvements that are going to be needed to that piece
Sure.
of property.
That's actually a good point, because this happened recently, so we were actually overseas when we found out about that too. So they are going to take care of it and hand over the property.
So, I'll take it point by point. Number one, revenue. You pointed out how the revenue is going to take into effect. We projected 3% occupancy increase year over year, we are at this point forecasting only 1% revenue increase year over year, which is very, very low. Even with 1% year over year increase, we are coming out way ahead on what the total expenses are at this point. Secondly, controlling expenses. That's a number one factor too. Being a corporate property, a lot of expenses are overseen, they're overlooked. They never, you don't have really a control of how you manage the inventory of the property. The manager can order whatever they feel like, whenever they feel like, and it gets approved by the corporate. So there's no really a defined, look that says, okay, you can order only 20 sheets in a month, or you can order 100 sheets in a month. There's no control over that. So that's going to be one control that we're going to have and reduce the expenses from that side.
Also the electricity, every time we walk into any room randomly, the AC is on like 55 degrees. Nobody really cares to, turn the AC off or the heat off, because it belongs to nobody, it belongs to the corporate. So all the rooms are always either too cold or too hot, so we are going to manage and maintain all that stuff as well. That's going to reduce the cost.
Right. So the operating expenses certainly are going to go down. The other point you pointed out is about the condemned property at this point. That happened probably 2 weeks ago. What had happened was there was a sewer backup in one room, which was in the middle of that building. So there are 4 structures. In one of the structures, one building, in the middle of the room, in the middle of the building, one room had a sewer backup. So because of that sewer backup, they had to get rid of or stop the entire section, not the upper level, just the ground level. They had to stop functioning on that. So no rooms were allowed to be rented out. City came over and looked at the property, they inspected it, and they said until unless a permit is drawn, no work can be done. At that time, the local management or the existing management of the property, not the corporate, but just the management over here, they allowed their maintenance people to rip off the flooring and start the work, but there was no permit taken. So the city came over and looked at it and say, hey, you did not pull the permit out. So that's why the city said, okay, it's condemned. You cannot use the property. Only 13 rooms. There are 13 rooms in that area. Those were stopped to be used for further until further action was taken. So the corporate has taken that into their consideration. They have already applied for the permits. I'm not sure if the permits have already been drawn, But the delay on the repair has been just because there's a custom pipe that needs to be installed. That was on order. So that's all going on. I'm getting almost like twice a week report. A report is due today, so I cannot give you what the work has been done up until yesterday. But the work is supposed to be finished by mid this month or towards the end of this month. And the reason I say that is because we were supposed to close on the property on November 27th. Just because of delay on the work, it has been pushed to first week of December or potentially the second week of December. Until that work is going to be finished, we are not going to possess the property. It's not going to be under our hands, and all the expenses being incurred would be under them, under current ownership. So from that perspective, the expenses and the revenues will be well covered for what's happening right now.
So to that point, when there's a change of ownership, what does the state require in upgrades to that facility? I.e., do they come in and say, you need to install sprinklers, or do you need to do this, or to do that? And all of a sudden, you take ownership of this property, and now you're accruing additional expenses.
Right.
And you're already cash strapped as it is.
Sure. We did look into that, as this property lies in a district where it is not 100% business district, they call it. I'm forgetting what the term is. But it's grandfathered in. So first of all, like you're pointing out the sprinkler system. It's not mandatory to have a sprinkler system in every room because it's an outdoor
Open
corridor property. So
Okay.
you do not need to have a sprinkler system. There is no other upgrade that needs to be done from a state perspective. Even from a corporate perspective, there's nothing to be done because 3 to 4 years ago, they had a $2.5 million investment in the property. And how they're selling it for $2 million, I don't know.
So D6 just bought this 2.5 years ago?
Well, G6 had it, it was a corporate-owned property for the last 35 years. However, the land was on lease. So what G6 did was they took over the land also on the land lease. So they bought the whole property. So the property along with the land is owned by G6 at this point.
Okay.
So, and apart from the purchase cost of the land, they also invested $1.5 million into the property in 2015 and 16 in upgrading the entire property.
So they have upgraded all the rooms. I don't know if you had an
I
opportunity.
didn't know that
Yeah.
exterior wise, it looks like nothing has been done in a long time.
Right,
Just-
exterior wise, except for the paint and a few parking lot areas, nothing major was done. Few things are remaining, like for example, all the railings all around, right? Those are a little rusty and it requires a little bit of TLC paint and things like that. A little bit of our cash is gonna be used, which is gonna come from our savings and also from the revenues on the parking lot. That's gonna be the major expense in 2019. Second major expense is gonna be the security system and also the lighting. But probably we might come back to the city for
We talked about the facade.
the facade improvement
Okay.
for that one. So, but
The
yeah,
concern is that, one, you want to be successful.
right,
And two, we have to be vigilant on taxpayer dollars.
exactly.
And at the end of the day, everybody wants to get paid and you want to make money and be a successful business person.
Right.
To that point, one of the suggestions, if I may, or bring up conversation is to attempt to deal with the clientele, if you will, that you currently are, is your rates are too low.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm. I think
Exactly.
You
the
want a
model has
1%
the.
growth, you just, get that room rental rate up to a
Right.
percentage where you're not opening a market to that troublesome
Sure.
tenant.
Mhm.
Yep, yeah, because right currently the Motel 6, this one particular property has the lowest rates in the entire city. So yeah, because corporate doesn't know how the market is, so they control everything from their end. Nothing has been done here, so they don't even have the control of changing the prices and rates or anything. So we are definitely going to increase the rates. So 1% is very, very conservative figure that we attempted. we know
You
that
could
we're going
raise
to
your
do
rate
better.
5%.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
And
what
not
the
be a
plan
problem,
is.
10%.
Exactly.
So
So
that
corporate
point-
doesn't dictate the price of?
No, corporate
No,
I
doesn't
was gonna
dictate.
ask that.
Right now, they are dictating, but once we own it, they don't.
Okay.
So
And-
even as a franchisee of Motel 6, you have the ability to
Yes.
set your room rate.
Exactly.
Yes.
So on Packer weekends, you can require multi-night
Yes.
stays at
Right.
$500 a night?
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, that's factored in.
Is it a pretty seasonal, have you seen a month to month?
Yes.
Yes,
So-
we have
so
seen
it
for
does-
last 7 years, every month that we have
Okay.
seen. So December, January, February are going to be very slow months,
Mhm.
but after that it starts to pick up, and it's going to be a good property for us. I guess.
They've been eager to get a little bit of the Packer season in their first year.
We were hoping.
Forget about that, forget about that.
Because of this,
I know with the games the way they're going.
Who helped you with the projections, or how did you, was that you guys working through them, or did you have assistance with those, or?
Well, they were, being in finance for the
Mhm.
last 20 years, so I have pretty good hold on how to forecast and
Mhm.
how to, that's my day-to-day
Mhm.
workings, right? Secondly, I got the historicals from the corporate, so all the historicals that I have are from 2015 or 2014 also, partial 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18 through October, I have all the financials. Occupancy rates, what they have been, or what are the percentage occupancy on that, the room rate that they have been charging. Obviously, there's huge potential in increasing the room rate, and, the revenues are just gonna shoot up. But, the other piece is how do you control your expenses? I think that's the biggest piece, which we have control of, right? Room
employees.
revenues, yeah, occupancy could be not in our control. Room rates could be in our control, but that's a market-driven project. But expenses are our control, which were under corporate control from Texas, which was not really a control. So, yeah, certainly, all the numbers were driven by myself, the forecast, but all the historicals are from the corporate.
So I think upgrading the lighting is important, so you can
It's very
leave the
important.
lights on for us.
Exactly.
He's just been waiting for that.
Wendy and Alderman Johnson, wait, is that in a TIF? Is that in the military?
It's just outside of the TIF. So the subway is included in the TIF. And Sonali and Deepak and myself have talked about that. They very much would like to participate in that if there is an opportunity to expand the TIF. When the TIF was put in place, they worked with the businesses that were there. It was hard to get participation, obviously, from a corporate-owned business, and that is difficult with that whole Military Avenue corridor. There's lots of corporate-owned businesses within that district. But as businesses turn over to owner-occupied and things like that, there may be an opportunity to either take a look at that, boundaries for that. Also, they want to be supportive of the Military Avenue Business Association and are working with Leah, and would like to do more interaction with it. So I think anytime you can turn a business over from a corporate entity to a sole proprietorship, it adds to that. But they are just outside the boundary.
You can
So the
modify
boundary
those
is at
boundaries.
south-
Yeah, they can,
Like
the
two or three
boundaries can be
times.
changed 4 times.
4 times, is it?
4 times.
Okay.
Anyway, there's great opportunity, and this is the perfect example of when that would be probably a time to review that. Just now that it's not a corporate entity, it's somebody that's in the area and would like to participate in that.
Yeah.
Are both of you going to retain your current jobs?
I resigned already a month and a half ago. He's going to.
I'm going to
so-
retain my job.
You're going to retain.
But he's going to be very nosy. I know he's going to be here every
So you
evening.
personally then would, I mean, you still live in Menasha, but you'll
Right.
be
Yes, I'll be
on
coming
site.
every day. Mhm.
You'll get to know 41 a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the relationship with the Ashwaubenon? Is there an Ashwaubenon Motel 6? Is that correct?
No.
Oh, I thought-
Oh,
There is
Ashwaubenon,
not, yeah.
there's another
All
one.
41.
Yeah, is
Yeah,
that one,
yeah.
do you know if that one's a corporate owned, or is
No,
there a way to
that's not a
share?
corporate owned. It's
Yeah.
a franchise.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
So you wouldn't be dealing, once, assuming this purchase goes through, Carrollton, Texas is out of the picture, you just deal with Motel 6 Corporation and directly. Because they're a franchisee that if I
Right.
remember, has like 1,400 plus units.
Right. So there are 2 parts of it, right? One is a corporate which owns the entire property and runs it. running portion goes under G6 Hospitality, which is also part of Motel 6 umbrella. Motel 6 as a corporate is owned by Blackstone,
Okay.
which was recently, Blackstone recently invested into Motel 6, probably 5 to 6 years ago, could be 5 years, around 2015 mark. And that's when the whole philosophy started to change for Motel 6. They wanted to disinvest from all corporate-owned properties because the main revenue stream for them is running the property and not owning the property. So the phenomenon what Blackstone does is they invest into these properties or these corporations, work on them and try to sell it again into the fair market, right? So that's what they're trying to do. So they own Hilton brand, they own the Marriott brand, they own La Quinta brand.
They're
All
a
these
REIT.
are Blackstone owned. And now Accor was the parent property of Motel 6 up until 2015, Accor Hotels out of Europe. But they sold the Motel 6 branch to Blackstone. So that's what Blackstone is trying to do.
Do you see it going to be challenging to hire people for the motel? Have they had challenges in the past, or have they been able to keep fully staffed?
Well, so far what I've learned from the staffing is the challenges are always there, and especially in the last couple of years, the economy is doing so well. The hourly rate people are getting a lot better opportunities, a lot of different places, So the trend has been to retain the people by keeping the market rates. So whether it's Walmart, Target, if they're approaching at $11, $12 an hour, we have to match that rate too. So certainly, the number one goal is to retain all the people at this point, and we do not want to lose anybody. That's going to affect our operation directly. And we have, although the employees do not know of the sale at this point, they will get to know about it by end of November. November 22nd is the date that they've been given from the corporate to the general manager at this point. So regular staff doesn't know that there's something going on, although they know, but officially
they don't.
yeah.
So off the subject again, back to the repairs. Who determines whether that repair was acceptable? I mean, they're gonna have to meet all of the zoning, building and inspection requirements, but, I mean, ultimately, it's gonna be your say that, okay, this is okay, and we'll move forward with it?
Right, yeah. Ultimately, it's gonna be our say, although we have to present to the franchisor, saying, hey, we are getting this done. Usually, there's nothing major, until there's some major upgrade to the property, only then you need to have a yes or no from the franchisor. Otherwise, if you're doing the pavement, the parking lot, the lights, security, you don't have to have any say from the franchisor.
Any further discussion? Move to return to regular order. So we have a second, or a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Would like to have a seat? I think we'll finish later on in closed session.
We'd like to go into closed session. Do we find a need for that?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the term, the requested term on this one, Wendy?
This one's muddled.
So, we haven't really set up term guidelines for the EDRLF, other than I was just making them very similar, if anything else, just for continuity for the committee and myself, so that it was easy to have very similar. So if we want to work within the 4% range on either one of them, it's going to be tied to the property. So we could go out as long as 15 years, I think, is what we've typically done on a mortgage-related piece within our CDRLF. So the Community Development Block Grant funds, we've typically done 4% for 15 years has been what we've done most of the time, and then they had to create one job for every $35,000 that we lent.
Has the committee had a chance to look at Co-Vantage's conditions of approvals? And if so, would that be a consideration as part of this loan?
That's the commitment letter.
Can I grab that real quick, or do you have it?
I had just copies, but.
Sure.
So that's a 10-year adjustable rate, 5.25 for 10 years.
Well, it's actually gonna change now because they had it 1.6, it'll be about 1.45, is that correct?
Well, yeah, it all depends on what the city
With
approves.
the city.
Right.
But as far as the lending institutions portion,
Yes.
based on the appraisal, it was 1.6, but now it's down to 1.5
Right, exactly.
currently,
Right.
based on the current appraisal that was
Yes.
done.
I just want to share with the loan committee, we had originally worked with the $60,000 for the Minority Revolving Loan Fund Connected EDRLF. After reviewing where everything was in the approval from Badger State and everything else, we decided that there was funds in that other CDRLF to take a look at with this particular piece that also gives them the opportunity to either adjust their, if the loan committee approves that portion of the ask as well, that does help them with potentially either pulling some funds out for working capital or adjusting their lending with Covantage, but it gives them a little more flexibility in their loan asks, so that we were able to find that 40 through our CDRLF.
Well, could
Does
you
that make sense?
run through that? 'Cause if we start at $250,000 request, how does that broken apart?
I have on their
I'm
application.
sorry for being ignorant, I'm trying to find it.
Yep, that's no problem, let me bring that up. I know in their application I have that.
Because we're talking, what sounds like about 3 funds.
I'm just gonna bring this up like this, and maybe I can make a copy for everybody, but I'll just go through. But here's the 2 million, and then their additional expenses to make it 2.15. And then this 250 is moved down to 100, and then this is upped. So that's how those are changed.
So they're not requesting 250, they're requesting 100,000.
Because that's what we have available.
All right, so it went from the request is 100,000.
And I just want to
And
so
60,000
explain how
is-
this
Yep.
sources and uses has
Okay.
been updated. And this was sent in the packet, but it may not be as clear as what you understand now because of the dialogue that has happened in the meeting, is how this was the asking price, these are their franchise fees and additional amounts. This is what they originally had asked, but we didn't have those funds in our accounts. And so between their lending agency and their $400,000 personal commitment, anyway, those are how the
So
sources
going
and
back
uses
to
have changed. So
Brian's
this was
original-
revised on the 2nd of November. So I just want to make sure that everybody is up to the latest information.
Going back to
All
Brian's
right.
comment then about the term, I don't know that we'd want to go beyond the 10 years that Covantage is lending. Does that make sense, Jim? Yeah.
You can stick with the same terms, is that some of the question, or?
All right, so 60 is from the minority owned at 40,000 from the fund, so. All right,
We're taking them from
Just
2
one point.
programs.
I heard that the term from Command is 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years is not the amortization, it's just
Right.
the, on the loan.
there's the.
Yeah.
There's 20 years.
But ours have to be
Amortization
fully
is 20 years.
amortizing, right?
20-year amortization.
Because that's on the property, and so
Yeah,
I have a
no,
lot of,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
20 years, yep.
Sorry. Yep.
But
But it's locked in for the 10.
It's 2 10-year arms.
No, it's a 10-year loan.
10-year
Oh,
loan.
10-year balloon,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the loan type is a 10-year ARM at 5.25 fixed for 10 years.
Right, and there's a balloon for the next 10.
Yep, annually after the next 10th year after.
I'd look to Chad for some kind of thought on that. The 10-year being the balloon and 20-year being the amortization.
Well, I mean, our term's gonna have to be fully, I mean, our term and amortization is gonna have to match up, so,
yeah, I mean, obviously there's a potential that it balloons and, you know, but we're gonna need to have a longer amortization, I think, to make the cash flow work and it is quasi real estate related, right?
It is.
Second or whatever mortgage on the property, so I mean,
We
I'm
also have
okay with the 15 year.
a duplex in the area if we wanted to even tie to another property, but then, and so that was listed in the assets, in their asset sheet. But
Well, and I think that was part of the co-advantageous conditions of approval, so.
I mean, and the fact that they're bringing in a substantial equity position on this too. I mean, I feel like it makes our position that much more secure.
Yeah, I don't see anything on the conditions of approval that we, you know, we'd be concerned about. Everything looks
Okay.
pretty standard.
Well, are we in a position to entertain a motion?
I'll let you package that up, Chad.
So I will, sorry, so we're at 100,000, is that the number? Is it, and do I have to call it a different, so this is the EDRLF funds? Okay, so I would make a motion to approve $100,000 from the EDRLF funds, 15.
It's 60,000 from
60,000.
Yeah, sorry.
And 40 from CD.
Okay.
Sorry about that,
Nope.
that's a little confusing.
Okay. Let's see.
But you can just say from the both funds
Okay.
altogether if you prefer.
$100,000 from the RLF fund, 15-year term and amortization at a 4% interest rate.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the request for $100,000. $60,000 is coming from the EDRLF program and $40,000 from the CDRLF, and the terms are amortized over a 15-year period at 4%, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying motion.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good luck.
Good luck. Raise those rates right away. You have lots of room to grow with that. And that'll take care of, and you do that, the police department will be happy.
Lights and cameras.
Nobody asked me why I'm dressed like this. I thought somebody would pay attention, at least you and me.
I would say you look beautiful today. She looks like a princess.
Today is our Diwali, the festival of lights. It's almost like Christmas for us.
really?
Thank you for making it brighter for us.
You know what? This showed up on my phone and I had no idea what it was.
Yeah, is it wrong to conduct business
Oh,
on
no,
a
no, it's
holiday?
perfectly
Okay.
auspicious, actually.
Actually, it's all about money for this festival too.
Yes.
So.
Oh, really?
Getting money.
Even better, you have that in your
amazing.
How appropriate. Well,
Right.
congratulations.
Thank you so
It's been a
much.
pleasure.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You
All
know,
right,
it's the
thank you
American
again.
dream.
Thank you. Thank
You guys, if I could make one more piece of advice for you, have you reached out to the Convention and Visitors Bureau?
We haven't yet.
Okay, I would encourage you to do that because they really help maintain room inventories for special events.
Okay,
So-
perfect. That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll
Thank
help you
you.
with that connection.
Okay.
And,
She's very resourceful. She's been
And
helping us
LED
in those
lighting.
pointers.
Go to LED.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
that's
not even
the-
thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
We are also, we've already gotten a couple quotes on those. So hopefully, as soon as we start to generate some revenue.
And if some staff needs a career change, that's all right.
That's right.
That's all
Yep.
right.
Yep. Certainly.
well, it's a pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so
Talk
much,
to you real
everybody.
soon.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you again.
All right, item number 4.
All right, we have a report for you on the last page. This is showing as of November 1st. Could it be November already? No, I'm just teasing. November 1st, that we have roughly about 18 loans out in the community. One is in bankruptcy and is in our legal department right now. We'll be working through the pieces with that, but obviously that does not have a real good outcome. But I'm sure there were some jobs and other things that were created out of that opportunity. But the rest are doing pretty well. We've been in contact with Gather to make sure that they have all of their pieces. I have spoke with the owner, and so has Stephanie, and so I think that we will get that all straightened out within the next day or two. For sure before the end of the month to get them all back on track. But everybody else seems to be tracking either current or there's a couple that are paid off. Roots on Ninth refinanced and is on their way to bigger and better things. They have, when the snowstorm happened, they had some storm damage with Evelyn. Unfortunately, glass and snow and a greenhouse, sometimes there's some compromised pieces that happen. There was part of the greenhouse that was going to be redone anyway. They just didn't know quite this soon. But they ended up restructuring everything. The business is in good standing, and they ended up being able to lend it entirely through their lender. So they paid us off, and now we have those funds
It was the
available for
the
yet
young lady
another
that
loan. So
worked there, wasn't it? She worked at that facility, and then
Jamie,
Jake built her up, yeah.
anyway.
That's a great success story.
Yeah, great success story, but they paid us off. They're redoing, it's, I think, even done already, but they've worked on getting they're expanding and upgrading everything and on their way. So that's exactly what it is. And they paid it off, and so it made it available for the next opportunity here.
So that is in the 189, the 70?
That actually is all calculated into the numbers at the bottom.
Yeah,
That was,
okay.
loan number 9 has been paid off,
Okay.
has been satisfied. Which made a little extra funding for us to try and get out in circulation. But yep, we'll continue to push the programs. It's been,
So question on 1011 Gather on Broadway, your note is partial payment made. Is that a
They-
portion of what was required?
so what they did was, this is the month where they switch over to the full payment. It's not interest only.
No.
And because we had it automatically drafted, they have to make up that difference now and get everything reorganized so that the draft is to the new amount going forward.
But it's according to the plan.
It is.
But I drove by there on Saturday night. It was hopping.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of activity over there.
Not, the chef, is that the chef that was on the Today
Mhm.
Show last week?
So she got a call when they were in Italy, doing some training and some other things there and traveling. And, yep, they were asked to do the Chef Showdown.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
That was pretty
We can't
cool. She
pay for
did a
that
good
kind of
job on
advertising.
camera.
Yeah, she was just delighted that
Yeah.
that happened. But yep, our businesses continue to report that they're tracking well, and looks like Tenant is moving along as well, so hopefully there'll be a ribbon cutting and opening pretty soon. Historic West, I meet with them tomorrow morning, and they are tracking to open on the 26th of November, so.
Wendy, with, I'm looking at Monkey Tails on here, with them closing their storefront, is there any issues that have arisen with repayment on that one?
Yeah, we typically would call the loan on something like that. He's offered to continue to make his payments. And I guess that's something that we should address with the loan committee. So Monkey Tails has closed their storefront. They have we have it tied to the equipment loan. He has his equipment for sale. And if any proceeds for the sale of it would go to paying off the loan. But I have reached out to legal to find out what actions we should take on that. And I don't know what that is something that I should bring to the loan committee as well. So thank you for pointing that out to me.
I mean, especially if they're selling their equipment, and that's where our claim is?
That's where our claim is. He can't sell any of it without checking with us first.
Okay.
But right now it's housed in a warehouse, and
He's aware of that?
we really should put that on an agenda item for discussion. And I
Well,
don't
is
know.
that something that staff could just follow up on?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I was just curious because,
His business is
continues-
still ongoing, if I'm correct.
It is.
Still doesn't
He's
the
in
food
a,
truck-
he's in a food truck.
type
Yeah.
of operation, so.
Yeah, but we're tied to equipment, and some of that stuff was in his location. I missed bringing that opportunity to the loan committee for discussion. Brian, would you like to take that up as a discussion point, or what should we do with that?
no, I think if you just talk
A
to him.
motion to direct staff to follow up?
Yeah.
We're in dialogue with him. He's making his monthly payments. If he does sell anything, he'll be going directly to loan proceeds, and he has agreed to pay the amount of the loan. So he's current on that. He's doing his food truck business right now. So his business is in existence. It's not in that same location. again, it's tied to the equipment because it was a lease piece, but we should probably restructure it. Maybe we structure it so it's tied to the truck, the food truck or something, or whatever
Well,
assets.
at
But we are tied to
minimum,
their
if he
home
sells
as
the
well.
equipment, then we receive the funds for the equipment.
Yep.
To pay down debt.
Yeah, I would just maybe ask you to bring that back to the next committee.
Yep, let's
With-
bring
with
that,
an
and then we'll
update
have
on
him
that.
in here as well.
Yeah.
I
Hey.
overlooked that, and I thank you for pointing that out to me. But we'll have him present to explain what's happening right
Yeah,
now and
and-
how he plans to take care of
And I
this.
think checking with legal again, just to make sure that, he's not doing a fire sale on the equipment where we have the claim. And if we need to adjust our claim on that, I think that's a discussion we may need to have.
We put a UCC filing on it, but unless the person that purchases it goes and does a UCC check, they have no idea. They just purchase it and then
It's gone.
then after it's gone, I guess we could try and get it back, but it gets to be a very laborious procedure for us as a staff.
Mhm.
And so let's get him in here and have him explain what's going on with his business. I'll put him on the agenda for next time.
When is next time?
I don't know, we are out of funds for the now. Would you like me to just schedule a meeting to have him come in and talk to the committee? Or
Or,
should we put it to
I
the-
mean, I would think a follow-up from staff to the committee by either email or,
Okay.
you know, what you've found out, you know, again, to Alderman Johnson's, you know, point is follow up with legal, follow up with him and just see where we're at.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily
He's
feeling
current.
compelled to take action because
No,
to that
he's-
point, he is current.
He's current.
It's just making sure that
We have all
our interest is secured and that, equipment isn't being sold off. And again, if we do need to take a position on the truck, if that's necessary, then we can have a meeting. But unless that you deem that necessary, I don't.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I will follow up with a report to the full committee.
Cool.
Any further questions, discussion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
So move. All those favors, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we have passed.
Thank you, it's been a really industrious year.